Okay, here on this channel, it always seems like I wait generations to review a movie. A movie could be out for so long while everyone's raving about it and talking about it, and then here I come 6 months, 6 years later being like, guess what I watched, guys? Today I'm giving you a review for A Quiet Place 2. I gotta be completely honest with you. I forgot this movie came out. You know, COVID really ruined timelines for everything. It really ruined movie releases. And I completely forgot this movie came out on Amazon Prime, free to watch. Completely forgot that this movie existed for a little while. Sometimes I do like reviewing movies a little bit later, because the hype dies down, right? So now I can be that sole hype master for that one specific film. I can release the video, and then anyone who watches me can say things like, oh, I completely forgot that movie existed, like I did for this one. And they can go out and check it out and watch it. Or maybe some people are like, I haven't seen that movie in years or months. I really enjoyed it. I want to experience it again. They can go off and enjoy their time watching it for a second time. So, with that being said, as all my review videos go, I try to keep it spoiler free, no matter how old the movie is. If you don't want this movie ruined for you, don't watch the video, watch the movie, then come back to the video and check it out. If you don't care, well, you're still welcome here. Okay, so first of all, let's start with John Krasinski. Not only is he in my favorite TV show of all time, The Office, but I gotta say, this guy hit the jackpot with this series. When he came out with number one, it hit people like a tropical storm. Everyone was raving about it and loved it. In its own way, it's an overused idea. Like, everyone uses this alien apocalyptic type of idea, but he made it his own, and he changed a lot of things about it, and that's what made it work. Look what's happening now. This guy can pretty much do anything he wants. Not only has he shown how great of an actor he is over the years, not only has he shown that he can be a writer, but now he's directing. He directed this entire film. So not only was 1 and 2 a success, but now they're coming out with a part 3, and I think they're coming out with a video game. I'm pretty sure there's a Quiet Place video game. And made correctly, it could certainly work. The world kind of reminds me of The Last of Us, except in A Quiet Place, you literally have to live your life in complete silence. But overall, I would like to simply congratulate John Krasinski for creating a world that everyone clearly loves, and that can really put him into many different places. Whether it be working on other projects or continuing this series, he's really made a name for himself. So essentially, this movie takes place immediately after number one. John Krasinski's character is dead, and now the family needs to leave the farmhouse that they were living in, and they need to find solitude somewhere else. As we saw at the end of the first film, it seems like their daughter Regan, the deaf girl, was capable of defeating these aliens with her hearing aid. These aliens rely on a high, intense ability of sound, and I guess the hearing aid kind of acts as like a sharp white noise to the aliens, something that really hurts them and something they can't handle. In the first one, we see how these aliens can be defeated, but now in the second one, it's more so about how do we capitalize on that idea of knowing how to defeat the alien invaders. The beginning of the movie, it was nice to see John Krasinski reprise his previous role. It was satisfying to see him once again. But what made it so impactful was that we did get to see, even though it was small, and we still don't know every single detail, but we did get to see how this alien invasion started. It was a really cool idea to have this massive asteroid that just soared through the sky. It was crashing into Earth. And that doesn't happen every day. I mean, we would probably sit here and think like, some huge asteroid from space is crashing down into planet Earth. But little do you know that that asteroid, whether it be a ship or simply a rock, is literally crawling with an alien species ready to take over Earth. And it just happened so quick that no one knew what to do. People were scrambling, hiding, scared, and even when hiding, they didn't know how to hide, because in their situation, they don't know that aliens have a sense of sound. So they didn't know that that's how they were going to find find them. So really, hiding isn't good enough if you're still making noise. It was great to see how there's a little bit of an origin story to explain how they got to where they were in the first movie. And right after the origin scenes, it jumps right back into the present day after John Krasinski's character has died, and now the family is leaving the farmhouse. There's even really cool detail they have with their child, because as we all know, the very popular scene of Emily Blunt giving birth in the first movie to a baby, which in a world like this would be completely difficult to have a baby who always makes noise, always cries, and you're trying to hide from aliens who have the ability to sense even the slightest bit of sound. So they have this wooden box, and it's padded with blankets and pillows and whatnot. And they lay the baby inside, and they cover the box with a wooden lid. But on top of the lid, there's an oxygen tank with a hose that's attached to the inside of the box and a breathing mask for the child so the child can continue to breathe. Very genius. Attention to detail works perfectly. Obviously, the question is where can you just find oxygen tanks on any regular day walking down these barren streets? I understand that might be a little difficult. I mean, years after scavenging, you probably find materials you'd never think you need. But I do enjoy that attention to detail, because when you have a baby in a world like this, it should technically be impossible, but I like how John Krasinski found a way to maneuver that. Now, eventually, Emily Blunt and the children find their way across this abandoned factory, and their son Marcus ends up getting clamped down on a bear trap. This whole entire scene is being watched from a man up top in the factory with a sniper scope, analyzing as Emily and her children try to run away from the alien. Fortunately for them, they do end up escaping the alien, and this man helps them escape into his little underground lair inside of this factory. Another really cool attention to detail is he uses an old industrial furnace where they can all hide in for the time being, where he sets a timer. Eventually, when the timer runs out, that means they're running out of oxygen and they gotta open up the doors of the furnace. But the whole point of it is that it's quiet enough in there to make noise where, the alien wouldn't be able to hear, but also, too, the aliens aren't smart enough to open doors and check inside. Now, you end up finding out a couple of minutes after this scene, when things start to quiet down and die down, the man takes off his bandana that he had around his face, and it is Cillian Murphy, who you end up seeing in the origin scenes at the beginning of the film. He was indeed friends with John Krasinski's character, and he seems to have survived this entire time. I'll say right now, I am very happy for Cillian Murphy, because he has just blown up. Years before, he was a very notable actor who simply was just the secondary guy or the tertiary guy. He was never really the main dude. One of his biggest movies, and a super popular movie to this day, 28 Days Later, where he is the main character, but after that you don't really see him as a main role in other films. Of course, you got The Dark Knight and Inception and Dunkirk, but never as a full-on main character. Well, not only is it being rumored that he is going to be a main character or the main character in the new Christopher Nolan movie, but it was just really nice to see him take on more of a main role in this film. And going back to just saying, I do really love this for Cillian Murphy, because he is such a great actor. Essentially, his character, without ruining anything, he had a son who unfortunately died in this invasion, and he claims to say that there is nothing he can do to help the family. But of course, as the movie continues, that changes. When they're hiding in this underground bunker underneath the factory, there's a radio, and it starts playing music that's being broadcasted from somewhere nearby. And Cillian Murphy essentially says that that song has been playing for ages. It's just on a loop. It means nothing. Trust me when I say, There's nothing out there. And of course, the daughter, Regan, she's the one who has this hope that there is more out there. And we've seen even from the first film that she was constantly studying and keeping an eye out for maybe broadcasts of other survivors. So she immediately picks up on this idea that no, there is someone out there. This is not nothing. This is something. Now, I do really like this girl's enthusiasm and honestly bravery and courage, where she actually ends up deciding to leave and go out on her own to find this broadcasting station. Essentially, what she wants to do is not only to find if there's survivors, but she would like to hook up her hearing aid to the broadcast and broadcast it more publicly so that if the aliens hear it, now they're starting to hurt, and maybe you can now find a way to fight back on them. Maybe you can find a way to finally defeat them. So as she leaves to go do this, Emily Blunt begs Cillian Murphy's character to find her and to bring her back safely. So now the stories get divided. You have Emily Blunt and the son, and then you have Regan, the deaf girl, with Cillian Murphy. And where these stories differ is Emily Blunt and the son are simply trying to keep the baby safe in the factory, and Cillian Murphy and Regan are trying to find this broadcast station where maybe they can make a difference. There's a great scene where Regan is still on her own at this point, and she comes across a small train station. And as she's moving through the train cart, she makes her way to the end where the driver's seat is. And when she looks inside, she finds a first aid kit. The door is blocked by a dead body and other debris, so she's trying to cram it open while she slowly reaches for the first aid kit and then pulls it back out. When the dead body kind of flops over, she screams and gets freaked out and kind of steps back, unfortunately making noise. What John Krasinski did here with this scene was brilliant because we can hear, of course, but we're watching it essentially from her point of view, so we shouldn't be able to hear anything. So there's literally no noise at all, and it is super unsettling because you know something's about to happen. And before I continue, that's the thing about this movie, is you always know something's about to happen, but that doesn't take the fun away from it. Because even though you know what's about to happen, I think now more so what it is you want to see what's going to happen. As she's taking a deep breath and calming herself down, she now has the first aid kit, and the camera slowly moves around her head, and you see her head, and right around her shoulder at the end of the train cart you see this alien climbing on the train chairs and kind of like scanning around to see if it hears anything else. This is one of the best moments in the movie. There are multiple moments where you see it, of course, but this is one of the first moments where you get to see what the aliens truly look like. These four-legged lanky creatures with this round head that like splits into pieces when it like screams or hears noise. It's really interesting because they obviously don't have eyes, but their ears, essentially their sound system, there's a part where one of its face pieces kind of clamps off, and you kind of see like this really rounded out structure of their hearing system. And it made me realize like, oh, so that's why they can literally hear anything at any time. But to essentially continue off that scene, she applies her hearing aid to the sound system she brought with her, and she's trying to shoot it with her shotgun, which she hits it, but it's still up and moving. And then that's where Cillian Murphy comes in, saves her, and then they choose to move forward to try and find this broadcasting system. Now, moving ahead into the movie a little bit, where things start to get a little more hectic, there's a part where Cillian Murphy's character and Regan find a small dock with a bunch of smaller boats attached to it. There's a small island a couple of miles away from this dock that the broadcasting station lies at. So they need to grab a boat all the way over there, and then figure out what to do next. As they approach this dock, it's later at night, and they end up getting ambushed by another survival group. So when they get captured by this group on the dock, Cillian Murphy has a noose wrapped around his head as if they're going to hang him, and Regan, they are stripping everything she has, so her bag, her gun, the sound system, and anything else she may have. And funny enough, the main guy of this group, it's super hard to tell, but it's Scoot McNairy, who plays the wheelchair guy in Batman vs. Superman. This group just looks like the type of people who murder and steal. That's what they're all about. To try and escape them, they essentially make unnecessary noise so that aliens end up flooding to the scene and fighting off this ragtag gang of killers. And Cillian Murphy ends up grabbing Scoot McNairy's character and jumping into the water, trying to drown him and defeat him, and then remove the noose from his neck. When that's all said and done, Cillian Murphy and Regan take a boat in all of the commotion and move forward to the island. On the other hand, you have Emily Blunt and her son, who Emily Blunt actually needs to leave for a small period of time to see if she can find more oxygen tanks for the little baby, because the oxygen is running out. And if you ever need to put the baby in the box for safety reasons, the baby won't be able to breathe. So she needs to leave to find oxygen while the son, Marcus, stays behind. Marcus ends up doing a little bit of snooping, which is maybe what he shouldn't be doing. He ends up going to the top level of the factory. This is where he finds a really weird area of all of these factory clothing with hard hat helmets just kind of hanging from the ceiling, and he finds a bunch of drawings of a small boy, which would have been Cillian Murphy's son, who ended up dying in the invasion. And as he makes his way through this room, there's a sheathed area where he pulls open the blinds, and there's a table with a dead body on top of it, and the body looks like it's been dead for a very long time, but it also looks like maybe there might have been some testing going on to the body. I'm not too sure, but I almost assumed that was Cillian Murphy's son. So Marcus gets freaked out and obviously, of course, bumps into something, makes noise, and now an alien is chasing him. So Marcus has to make his way back into the underground bunker, take the baby and whatever oxygen is left, put it inside of that closed off furnace. Now they gotta hide from the alien, but this alien was smart enough to check in the lower levels. So now this alien's trying to get inside of the bunker, and Emily Blunt arrives just on time with 2 oxygen tanks, where she now needs to try and fight off this alien by herself. I don't want to spoil the rest of the movie for you because I feel like I have been spoiling it quite a bit. When Cillian Murphy's character and Regan end up getting to the small island, they end up finding out that people are pretty much living a normal life because the aliens can't swim. That is one of their weaknesses. Now, I know I just talked about spoiling the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it, but when it's all said and done, spoiler alert, they do find a way to defeat the aliens a lot easier using Regan's hearing aid and dispatching it throughout the entire broadcast station. The movie ends pretty abruptly. There is room for maybe the movie to slow down a little bit and tie up any loose ends that were involved in this film. Then, you can slightly and subtly hint at a number 3. No. This movie was like, nah, you know what? We're done. And it literally ends, I want to say 10 seconds after an action sequence. I will say the movie was really short, or at least it felt short. That can be a good thing because of how much I was enjoying it. It just felt like time went by really quick. But I will say I think the movie may have benefited from maybe another 20 minutes. But you know what? That's maybe a little bit of a biased take on my part, because I love long movies. I could sit here and watch 4-hour films, no problem. I've got no issue with that at all. So I do think it did end a little quick, And as interesting as it was the way they ended it a little abruptly. But of course, as we all know, there will be a part 3 of A Quiet Place. Now, as all of my movie review videos go, let's check it out on IMDb and see what type of ratings it has. So for user reviews on IMDb, it is sitting at a 7.3 out of 10. And on Metascore, it is sitting at a 71 out of 100. From what a lot of people would tell me, or from any spoiler-free reviews I read, a lot of people said that number 1 and number 2 are pretty much even. And I do have to agree, because number 1, when I first saw it, I gave it a 7 out of 10, and in fact, this movie, I am going to be giving it a 7 out of 10. The movie is good. In fact, it's really good. And it goes out and it explores everything that John Krasinski, I think, had planned just for this movie. And that could be why it ended so abruptly, because he wants to save more for the future in 3 and whatever else they got going on in this universe. You know, this would be a type of movie that maybe if there's someone who hasn't seen it before and they want to check it out, I'd have no problem putting on 1 and 2 and watching them. I don't think I would sit here myself though and say I have to rewatch this movie. I think it's simply good at what it does. It was good at what it went out to go and accomplish. And I think the future of this universe is looking good as a whole. But anyways, everyone, that is it for my Quiet Place movie review. Make sure to check out all my other movie reviews. I've done quite a few recently. If you haven't seen any of them, I will put a tag in this video or the link in the description below. Also, too, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with all my future content. It really does help me out. But just like usual, it has been a pleasure, and try to do some sign language like they did in the movie. Maybe I said something, I have no idea.